come up with a new theory.
You know, I can almost guarantee, in spite of me saying stop, halt, before you go to the comment section and comment, her father is dying, her mother is Eleanor, so nah. There will still be somebody down there trying to debunk the logic of this theory before they've even watched the video, but shit, that's just YouTube. Welcome back, ladies and gentle peasants, to a brand new kind of theory video, and one that's going to be pretty out there, and you're going to have to go with me on this one. You're going to have to go the full hog, the full green mile of this video to get why I would pose the question, is Marlene Wallace a Cetra? Yes, that girl, that seemingly unimportant NPC toddler whose purpose in the game felt like it was just to highlight how shitty Tifa and Barrett were as parents and shine a torch on Cloud's social awkwardness. But after having the idea sent to me by Azahod on Twitter, thank you very much mate, and many hours of digging through the likelihood of this wacky ass theory, what I found left me realising Marlene Wallace is a way more significant character than I first thought. Not because of any literal accomplishments, but more on a symbolic level. Are you prepared to entertain this madness? Good, then let's go. So what I want to start by clearing up is this is not some grasping at straws attempt to refute Marlene's heritage. We know Dine, he's just some bog-standard coal mine worker from Coral turned douchebag, and though we don't know much about her mother Eleanor, I'm under no illusion that she was just a regular human woman as well. So that's point number one. This is not that kind of video. Point number two is FF7 makes it very clear that Aerith is the last Cetra. Albeit half Cetra, only she can lead Shinra to the promised land, commune with the planet, and possesses all of the distinctive traits of a Cetra who still has her ancestors' lineage and powers. So why am I contradicting such hard and concrete evidence? Well, let's talk about Marlene, starting with just how much she knows. She was one of the few characters that Square Enix panned to during the iconic finale of the original game. Being in Calm, right next to where the meteor was landing, she pretty much had a front row seat to seeing Holy and Livestream come to the defense of the planet, the big climactic ass ending. Now that's a lot for a child to bear witness to, is it not? I mean, damn, 4 years old or not, that's gonna stay in your memory. Then in Advent Children, the first person we hear in that movie is once again Marlene.
Because of Shinra's energy, we were able to live very comfortable lives. But wasn't that because we were taking away from the planet's life?
They choose her, very curiously, to be the one who narrates the events of FF7, which she does so perfectly and shows that despite being a child and 4 years old during the game, she has a perfect understanding of what happened back then. She speaks about Sephiroth, about the planet's anger, the consequences of humanity's greed, even observes it firsthand as she watched loved ones like Denzel suffer from the geostigma. This is all really important to hold on to your mind, guys. Marlene has seen, witnessed, and knows just about everything. So this next point is, needless to say, Marlene's character has been moulded by these events that she's witnessed to something that is not normal for a child of her age, and that character is Aerith. She has become mini Aerith 2.0, and Square Enix, they make no hesitation in making that clear to us. From the way they style Marlene's hair in Advent Children with the same bow, the same plait, the way she tends to the flowers just like the OG flower girl, and most striking of all, it's the way she speaks, her resolve. Her straightforwardness. This scene here when she is speaking to Cloud as she cuts straight through his doubts, it's so distinctively Aerith the way she speaks, it's uncanny.
So, is that the reason why you had to leave, Cloud?
Why did you come? Even though you're about to break?
Or because you had the sickness too?
And notice Cloud's surprise, Marlene's mannerisms. Oh, and the song playing. The song playing, well, that one kind of puts the jury out on this one.
I just thought I couldn't care for myself. I want to be forgiven.
Now, we could say that this is Nomura just doing this as a herald to Aerith, that Marlene was inspired by her at a young age, and their personalities are just being made to resemble one another, to remind us of Aerith, but I'd like to think it's more than that. Marlene has become caring and thoughtful beyond her years, showing incredible maturity for her age, just like the young Aerith used to, and even takes up her mantle of caring for the church flower bed, and this is hugely symbolic. I think by now we've all realised that this isn't just your regular old flower bed, your standard old allotment of foliage. In fact, it becomes the actual key to curing the geostigma at the end of Advent Children. If that wasn't a bigger clue enough, this patch here represents the planet as a whole, and tending to it, nurturing it, this is what the duty of the Cetra is and was.
Don't step on the flowers.
Likewise, when Loz thinks it's disgusting, when Reno and the others trample on it, or Cloud, for example, moves the fight to the back of the church to protect it, it's all a representation of these people's positions about the planet, or their regard or lack thereof for the planet. Cloud wants to protect it. Reno, at this point in the game, just like the rest of Shinra and the Turks, they have a disregard for it, and Loz actually has an active disgust for it, just like Sephiroth. It represents the planet. So now if we skip to Advent Children, Marlene being the new caretaker of this massively significant allotment, that means something. That means a hell of a lot. Not to mention just being around this literal access point of the live stream. Day in, day out, tending to it. That's got to be having an effect on Marlene. Maybe that's why she's so Aerith-like. Continuing on with that theme, the white materia, the most significant legacy of the Cetra that Aerith admits not actually knowing what it actually is, but that it communes with her, and holding it gives her a connection to her people. Isn't it pretty huge that the only other person to ever touch, because Cloud and the gang, they never actually knew what it was, is Marlene? Whew. Now, Aerith said that holding it as a girl made her feel safe, and expanded details in the Ultimania also say that when Aerith went to get Marlene out of Sector 7 when the plate is about to collapse, she allowed Marlene to hold on to it to also make her feel safe. Now, I don't know about you guys, but holding the most powerful materia in the universe that allows the holder to commune with the planet, that taught Aerith all of the instincts of her ancestors, all of the compassion she has for the planet. It's even what led her to the City of the Ancients. That's how she found her way there. So is it beyond any kind of logic that that infinite source of power and life also didn't change Marlene in some way when she held it for that brief period of time? Either commune with her, or in turn did the white materia sense Marlene's compassion for the planet, in turn a piece of humanity's compassion, or even gift it to Marlene? There's so many possibilities. This is just some speculation. This is a theory, but it would be re-establishing that long-lost connection between humanity and the planet. That could be of astronomical importance, and with that in mind, I want you to now look at this scene from Advent Children, the infamous Loz and Tifa fight.
Wanna play?
Oh goddamn, I love this scene. Now notice what Marlene, a clear symbol of Aerith, uses to stop a literal reincarnation of Sephiroth, so Loz, killing Tifa, who we could say is a symbol of humanity, on top of a flower bed that is a symbol of the planet. She hilariously doinks this piece of material off his noggin. But comedy aside, look at this piece of materia. Out of all the different colours of materia, of all the different shades and hues that Nomura could possibly have used, is it a coincidence that the orb Marlene threw looks practically identical to the white materia from the game? Look! Holy crumbs, guys. Of course, this isn't actually the white materia. No, that was lost in the bottom of the lake. And I remember reading forums when the movie came out where people were discussing whether Square had made this as a mistake, whether it was just a coincidence making this orb look so strikingly like the white materia. Well, looking at all of this, and where I'm going with this theory video and what all of these people in this scene are representing symbolically, I don't think it was a mistake at all. Woohoo! Now we've established a lot of ways that Marlene could have acquired supernatural connection to the planet. Let's see it in effect. So at the end of FF7, before the live stream even emerges, I have to stress this, before it even comes out of the ground, we see Marlene sat alone at a table, and somehow she not only senses it before everyone, she specifically senses Flower Girl. Flower Girl, she's 4 years old. She'd met Aerith for 10 minutes at max. Pretty abnormal for a 4-year-old girl, right? Now we skip to Advent Children.
Is it her?
She senses her again, just before the Sephiroth fight. She even senses the precise location Cloud's geostigma is, despite him keeping it completely hidden the entire time. Hell, not even Tifa knew at this point, and this actually surprises Cloud. Now you might say, well, Pez, That doesn't make any sense. In this scene where her and Tifa find his bandages, Marlene also had no clue, so how is she sensing it? To which I say, exactly.
Is Cloud sick?
Why didn't he say something?
So how did Marlene not know in this scene, but then knew the exact place on his arm where the geostigma is? Well, is it any coincidence that the thing that happens between these two moments, between these two scenes, is this right here? In the remnant fight in the ancient city, Aerith appears to Cloud and touches the spot of his infection. Then skip forward a scene and Marlene somehow then knows. What? Combine all of this. It seems clear Marlene was somehow instinctively knowing that's where the geostigma was. The same way she instinctively knew when Aerith was appearing. It seems to me, or at least by theory standards, the connection between these two characters goes way deeper than just cosmetic and personality similarities, but to an actual soul affinity connection, acquiring her senses, her emotions, mannerisms, feelings, intuition, a striking amount of her personality. And how is this possible, you ask? Well, I racked my brain on this as well. It's wholly possible because that's exactly, is it not, what the remnants are to Sephiroth? His senses, emotions, mannerisms, feelings, intuition, all divided between the remnants, and mind-blowingly, and I only discovered this a month ago, the Ultimatus states Aerith has the same abilities as Sephiroth, that she, if she wanted, could make remnants. But just after the events of FF7, so Aerith, she considers using these powers. This is just after she's died, but she doesn't, because she worries what effect this will have on the planet and, quote, wants Cloud to remember her the way she was. But during this same period in the live stream, just after Aerith's death, and she's learning about these powers, she uses her power to reach out to a phantom and, quote, her heart tightened as she thought of Marlene. Arlene! I don't know how she delivered that line. Aerith's waves of thoughts expanded and they reached the phantom. The full figure of a man with a gun arm attached to his arm rose from the Mako. So they're referring to Dyne here. But point being, despite Marlene and Aerith's actual real time in the game together being no more than a day or two, max. All these hints of Aerith being able to pass down parts of her own essence, the same as Sephiroth can, and her profound feelings for Marlene enduring fiercely. Right at the point of the Ultimatus story where Aerith is trying to reform herself in the livestream, her identity is fragmented and scattered and she has to work really hard to reform herself, and at the same time she's doing that, she's realizing from Sephiroth about passing on parts of her essence and she's thinking very strongly of Marlene. It doesn't seem exceptionally impossible that Marlene inherited some of Aerith's actual being. Okay, so what's the point? What bearing does this have on the story, Pez? Why have I sat listening to your hobo voice this entire time? Well, what this means, guys, and what this video made me realize completely opened my eyes in a way I have never had before about this story, despite playing FF7 like 11 goddamn times and watching the Advent Children movie probably 111 times. What Marlene represents is Aerith's legacy. Or at least this is what I'm theorizing. And not just Marlene, but all of the children in Advent Children. Because what were the Cetra? The Ancients. They were a race whose duty was to protect the planet. Now, a common misconception here, and even I had up until this point, was that the Cetra were an alien race. I thought they travelled from planet to planet, nurturing life, then moving on. And we had every reason to think that. That is what the game told us, but actually it's not true. It was actually a translation error. Goddamn, between the Japanese and English versions, confusing the word planet with land. They got muddled. The Cetra didn't come from out of space. They simply dedicated their lives to travelling around the planet, never settling. And the reason I don't need to argue about Marlene's heritage or DNA for this video is because humans came from Cetra. They aren't a different species, they aren't a different race. Humans are simply Cetra who ceased their duty to protect the planet. They stopped traveling, they wanted to settle down, and then when Jenova came, spread this huge ass plague, they didn't fight for the planet. They hid, ceased to care for the planet, and as a result, over time, lost their connection to it, and in turn their powers. But what if Marlene symbolizes humanity regaining that long lost connection? After all, that's what Barrett, Cloud and the gang are fighting for. Even Shinra and the Turks, previously the biggest douchebags and offenders of humanity's evil, even they are fighting for the planet. Hell, there's even a song in the game called Those Who Fight for the Planet. So in other words, the complete reversal of what originally divided humans from Cetra. And think of how deep that is in trying to destroy the planet, which was already dying, and wipe out the Cetra for revenge, which technically she did, Jenova actually saved the planet and restored the Cetra by being the eye-opener humanity needed. What they had originally turned blind to. Jenova's actions in trying to destroy the planet was ironically what saved it. Even when she spread the geostigma along with the remnants, think about it, when the children got brainwashed in the movie, infecting them, could we not say it actually connected them back to the life stream? Because Jenova was in the life stream. That's what the Jenova geostigma was an infection of. And it's one and the same thing, it's the same place. The proof of it is not only Sephiroth saying he travels and endures in the life stream, we even have a story of it. In the Ultimania, Aerith confronts Sephiroth multiple times in the life stream in this whole cat and mouse act, but Aerith, she is the real MVP here, because she used that geostigma against Jenova to not only win the fight, but to pave a permanent future where the new generation of children were once again connected to their planet, just like the Cetra were, because what would have stopped mankind reverting back to its evil ways? Now let's say Cloud and the gang win. What happens in 1,000 years when the events of FF7 were nothing but a distant memory in that planet's history? Where the wake-up call humanity had was just a forgotten legend. Nothing. Eventually that eye-opener would be forgotten and humanity would revert back to its greed, to its selfish ways. And that's why Aerith knew she had to open the eyes of the children. Like Marlene, even in the game, if you return to Midgar, you can actually see the ghost of Aerith present with children. There's this whole theme of Aerith and children. She spends a lot of her time with them. And I don't think it's all for nothing. Her spirit is there, tending to the flower garden. Again, the symbol of the planet, guiding them in that ritual of nurturing the planet. And while we might look at the geostigma as something that corrupted and brainwashed the children in Advent Children, could we not also say it allowed her to reach out to every single child? Hence why when they're all there, they're running on instinct, no one's told them to go there. No, that's kind of supernatural in itself. They're all running to the church, to where the life stream has just come bubbling out, and they're all smiling and laughing. And one of the girls who had been affected by geostigma, she actually references Aerith to Cloud. And so with everything you've heard in this video, I want you to watch this clip of Advent Children. Watch it back again, the ending, and notice the change in the children's faces. Notice the expressions on Cloud's face. Bearing in mind everything I've said in this video.
It's like she said, wait here and Cloud will come back.
I honestly can't watch this scene anymore without shedding a damn tear. Cloud, the living legacy of Zack, who had always fought for the today, looking on and realizing, and that's the thing, I think this is where Cloud realized that Aerith was the one who, through the children, paved a way for the tomorrow. This theory may not be as literal a Marlene is a Cetra explanation as you perhaps were expecting, but symbolically, I like to think Aerith reconnected humanity to the planet and returned what once made humans Cetra, taught them the values of fighting for, of nurturing, of caring for their planet. And when I think of it like that, I always used to see the ending of FF7 since I was 11 years old, with Red 13 in the future. When you can't see any humans around, I used to see this scene as nature surviving in spite of mankind. That whole nature will always endure kind of thing. But now, the way I like to see it now, and I hope that the remake can evolve on this. Because this is the beauty of the remake. It can flesh out things that they thought about in Advent Children that they couldn't show or couldn't include in the original game. And that's what Nomura has said that he wants to improve on the original. I'd like to think the planet survived not in spite of mankind, but because Aerith's legacy, one that people like Marlene, who had witnessed the live stream, witnessed Holy, held the white materia, and people like Denzel, who had been connected to the geostigma, that they and the generations that followed, they continued that legacy and didn't kill their planet. Because they have the technology, they have the know-how to do it. But because of the last remaining Cetra, they didn't. And perhaps they are absent here because just like the Cetra, they resumed their journey across the planet, be it to the ancient city or maybe hell. If Sid Highwind achieving space travel was anything to go by, maybe they really did move on from planet to planet, instilling new life. Wow, guys, I hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I like making it. I'd like to give a huge shout out to my Patreon supporters. Let me know what you think about this video in the comment section below. If you liked it, if you have any thoughts about it. And that's a wrap. That's a theory, a hella symbolic theory. Struck me straight in the goddamn feels. Until the next video. Kubo!
You see, everything's all right.
I'm not crying.